Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have another very special guest. Before we introduce our guest, I want to give a shout out to our co-host, Corinne French.
Yay, so excited to be here today. This is going to be wonderful, I can tell.
Yes, super excited as well. Before we introduce our guest, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsor as well, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's given hundreds of millions of dollars to public education in the form of a free gift, zero out of pocket to the district, over 700 million given to over 190 districts in Texas. So if your district needs unrestricted funds that doesn't involve taxpayers, doesn't involve the government, and it's recurring revenue every year, reach out to Ideal Impact. Okay, now for our guest, we have Superintendent Reid from Pewitt ISD. Superintendent Reid, how are you doing?
That's me. Yes, I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. We're all super excited to share your story and talk about what you're passionate about in public ed. If you can, share a little bit about your background.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for having me. This is fun. I'm excited. So I have been in education, gosh, I don't even know how many years it's been, but I feel like I'm creeping up on 20 or so. I have been a superintendent for 3.5 years here at Pewitt. All of those years were here at Pewitt. Before then, I was a principal, assistant principal, counselor, and also a teacher, and then various other jobs of coaching PE or cheerleading or whatever else they needed me to do. So
very cool. Very cool. So go ahead, Corinne.
I know. I want the first question. When you were a teacher, did you know that you would be a superintendent? Was that something that you looked towards? And if not, tell us a little bit about that pathway.
Yeah, so no, I mean, I never dreamed that I would end up being a superintendent. In fact, even when I went through my superintendent classes, I mean, I just really love learning. I have a master's degree in school counseling, and then I went back to get my master's in administration. And so I just love to go to school, and it just was a lot of fun to me. And so even when I went to get my superintendent certification, I wasn't really sure how that was going to work. You know, I was going to have it, and this is the first job I ever applied for, and I got it. And so I was not expecting that. And it's been great though. I started this job in January of 2020, and then COVID hit in March. And so that is something else I never expected to have to, go through and make decisions that actually affected people's lives, in a big way. And so, that was tough. And I don't know that any school would have ever prepared me for going through that. But here we get, we're on the other side. And so it's been good.
I love it because I'm working on my doctorate, and one of my original ideas for a study was to study the women in Texas and their journey to becoming a superintendent. So I love that you were like, no, I'm a lifelong learner. I was just taking those classes. But did someone, how did you become that lifelong learner? Did someone say, look, I see you as a leader, or did you just know that you wanted to be a leader and you would prepare yourself with that coursework?
So I think my personality is a little bossy, I'm just always been a little bossy, and I've always been able to have some hard conversations with other adults. And that's something not everybody can do, And so when I was a counselor, I had my principal and the assistant principal really pushed me into some administrative duties that probably most counselors don't get the opportunity to have to be a part of. And I knew then that I wanted to be in a more leadership role. I loved counseling, and I still love counseling. And I think a lot of my job is counseling. And so I've been able to use that part of my education in all of my roles. But I just think that me being able to have those hard conversations in a way that I hope that people always feel like that I'm not hard, and that I'm not cold, I'm empathetic and I'm, sympathetic to what they're going through. But at the same time, you have to get your point across, and you have to do what's best for the district. And so, yeah, I mean, it just
when you're saying that, Oh, sorry. When you're saying that, you're saying bossy. And I think that's like, you probably are very clear and specific, and people might not like it. Sometimes people
It's
don't like when
true.
we're being specific, but one of us, we always talk about that. So many people talk about Brene Brown, but one of the things I like that she says is clear is kind. And clear and being clear and specific can, to some people, look like it's bossy, but I bet you just need new things needed to get done. Like, and you weren't afraid to take charge. So yeah, I love that.
And I do think, just because we're talking about women in leadership roles, I think that it's hard to be a woman in a leadership role, because if you're clear and you come across in a way where you want things to get done and you want things to be done correctly, which our students deserve, right? I mean, we want the very best for our students. Some people don't appreciate that. Now, the same thing could come from a man, and it could be taken in a less harsh way, like we're the B word and they're just being a man. And so,
yeah. And so Gary has 3 girls and I have 5 boys and a girl. So like the way we help prepare our, I mean, Gary wants to prepare his daughter. I'm speaking for Gary, but we've been doing this for 2 years. So I know he cares about his daughters and their leadership someday. And I care about, my sons and how they lead. But what can we do? I'm thinking of like, how can we, did you just get comfortable with that at some point and just say, okay, this is going to come across harsh, but I got to do it. Like you're talking about those hard conversations. Do you just learn that with practice? How can we, and I guess my real question is, how can we shorten that learning curve for anyone? Because just because a person is their gender doesn't necessarily make them be more specific. But you're right. When my sons say something or other people say things, sometimes I look at them like, why did I say it like that? I could say it like that too. So how can we shorten the learning curve for anyone who wants to be more specific or clear?
That is a great question. I do think that always remembering that there is a human on the other side of that conversation, and not saying anything hurtful, because you don't hurt their feelings. It's not about that. And it's not a lot of the conversations that we have to have. It's not personal. But you can still be honest while making sure that they can have integrity, hold their integrity. And so I just think it's being, having compassion for what people are going through. And that is something that, some people have to learn because it doesn't come naturally for them. I don't know necessarily how to shorten that learning curve. I think sometimes people have it and some people have to work harder for it. But, I do always try to be clear and honest, but with grace. So.
Wow. No, this is interesting for sure. It kind of reminds me of a conference I went to recently, and I think it somewhat connects. Hopefully it's not too often left field. And it talked about forming meaningful relationships with everyone you meet. Right. And I think sometimes we get too caught up in, at least I know I do, too caught up in tasks and getting things done and, focusing on tasks versus really taking that point to make it a kind of an intimate connection with someone, right? A very meaningful connection with someone. It could be a teacher, it could be a student, it could be anyone. But it's even with all the digital stuff that's happened recently, with video calls and that sort of thing. It seems like that may be a trend that's emerging where we're kind of taking a step back and we're appreciating people as individuals a little bit more. I don't know. What else? Is there a connection there?
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Something that is very important to me is forming those relationships. And I start every single day on a campus. So, I every day is different, but I always start there. And I just really try hard to form relationships with my staff. So that's everybody. That's me going into the cafeteria and talking with the kids. And it's me trying to, ask the teachers, how's their family? How's it going? And And so they feel like I'm approachable and I'm not scary, because I don't want to be that person. You know, I want to have an open door. I want them to be able to come ask me a question, and they do. I went back and got my CDL last year, which was the hardest thing I've ever done in education. And truly it was so hard. I mean, I had to name engine parts, and I mean, I don't know engines, you know, but I did that because I wanted people to see me as like, you know, I can do that. If she can do it, I can do it. And, you know, we're all short on bus drivers. So, but I do drive the bus every now and then. And I got my food service certificate so that I could serve in the cafeteria if they need me to. And, you know, I just want them to feel like I'm relatable, and that does help with the relationships and forming relationships.
You're describing something that I feel like is the thread of every superintendent. We have the privilege and honor of interviewing so many superintendents, and I was a school board trustee for 10 years, and superintendents to me are the best people on the planet. But you're describing servant leadership. You're showing them, one, if there's a person, and this is what I feel like you're saying, if there's a person in the community that might want to become a bus driver or have that CD, like you did it and you've all these other degrees, and you are saying that was difficult. It is. And so you led by example. And so I just honor you for that. Like that's such a good way to lead. And the other thing that I want to mention on is Superintendent of the Year, Bobby Ott, mentioned the intent, being so intentional to be with people. And I think you just said that too, like you start your day on a campus. If you don't make those things important as a superintendent, it's not going to happen, because there's so much y'all are doing. You're like mini presidents or mini governors or mini mayors, you're everything. So do you have some tips on how you go about your planning, or just like some very practical? And we should tell our listeners, we never let our guests know like what we're going to actually ask. So if hopefully this is not putting you on the spot too much, but yeah. I'm just wondering if there could be superintendents in other small districts or large districts that are just maybe overwhelmed with how do you make the students a priority and still connecting. So do you have some tips for that?
I would just say that has to be, I mean, that has to be a priority. I mean, you have to make it a priority. And I know for me, if I come to my office first, it's going to be very difficult for me to leave. I mean, I'm going to get wrapped up, and there's going to be, you know, things come in and pop up, and you never know who's going to walk in your office or who's going to call. And so I always start there so that I know at least one time a day I've gone to the campus. You know, I've connected with other people than just who's in my office. And that's good for me too. I mean, I need to see these kids. I mean, they fill my cup. I mean, if I mean, these little ones, I mean, it's like I'm a rock star when I walk in the elementary, you know, Miss Reid, your hair looks so good today. And I mean, I love that, you know, they're just so sweet. And the high schoolers. So I went to Six Flags I went as a sponsor to Six Flags on the senior trip last week. And I rode all the rides, and they think I'm cool now, you know, and so that was a lot of fun. So, you know, I just think it's important for us to be around, and, you know, it's just not all about what's going on in the office down here and on paper and data, and there's so much more.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I don't know if all districts see it that way, right? So, and I imagine it gets more challenging if you're like a super, you know, large district. It's probably, but still, even the biggest districts, if they were doing some of the things you were doing, and maybe they are, maybe we just haven't you know talked to them enough, but what you're doing definitely, you know, from being in the forefront, you know, driving the bus, you know, being there, you know, in the cafeteria, doing those things. It helps on so many levels, I can imagine, of seeing your leadership do that. And, you know, there's no job that's, you know, you're not above any job, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's, and I completely agree with what you're saying about, so I did watchdogs for my daughter's district. And so I was there all day, and one's in kindergarten and one's in third grade. And yeah, the kindergartners, they're like surrounding me, and they're like, you want to do this, you want to do this. It was overwhelming. And then of course my older daughter in third grade, she was you know, being cool at that point, you know. And so it's just, it's so fascinating seeing the transitions they make, and it seems like as we get older, we try to resort back to being a kid a little bit more. At least we hope we do, and we kind of
Mhm.
can break away from some of those limiting beliefs and really just enjoy life a little bit more. At least
I
I guess
agree.
that's the goal.
And I think, with this job, I mean, it's definitely the hardest job I've ever had. I mean, as far as, there's hard decisions that I have to make every single day. And I want it to be fun. I don't want to be, I don't want to be the one that's looking forward to retirement because I can retire in 9 years. And okay, in 9 years, I get to be done with this. I don't want to be that way. I want to enjoy it every day. And so, the kids are fun and some of them are little toots sometimes, but I mean, we all are, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's an important leadership principle right there as well for those that are listening in, whether it be a teacher or anybody in society really is, I feel like years ago, at least when I was going to school, we were fixated on if you want to be successful, you get a certain type of job, right? And at the end of the day, it's not about, working a job you hate and then one day being able to retire so you can watch TV or whatever. It's about
Right.
making a positive influence and doing the things that you're the best at and you're passionate about and you love and you're helping the most people. So yeah, I think that's a great point, actually enjoying what you do. And if you don't enjoy what you do, find something you
Do something
enjoy.
else. Right. Absolutely. And our teachers, I mean, I would say almost every single one of our teachers loves what they do. And I see that every single day. And, I mean, that inspires me, just seeing how much they care and love our kids. And it helps me want to make sure that I'm taking care of them and I'm supporting them and I'm doing everything that I can possibly do to make sure that they are taken care of. And so, it's just a revolving, it's a circle. We all take care of each other.
All these nuggets of wisdom. I mean, it's such an important point. So a lot of leaders, you've probably seen this, and I'm not talking about just public ed, I'm talking leader, you get to a certain role and it's easy to think of people that work for you and things of a burden. But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, helping them get to where they want to, helping them get to their goals, helping
That's
them
right.
reach their
Yeah.
vision.
Right.
And then, I think that's an important point there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very good. I'm excited about this interview. What else? Drop some more wisdom nuggets on us here.
Wisdom. Well, so one thing that we did, we started this year and it was, what I was going to talk about today was the 4-day school week. So, we're not a very big district. Of course, we can't pay the most. We're rural. So, we're out in the middle of nowhere. We don't just have people lining up to come to Pewitt, right? But we knew that we wanted our kids to have the best teachers. We want them to be certified. We want to offer our students the very best that we can. And so, okay, we had to think, what can we do differently? So we started the 4-day school week. It's been amazing. Our teachers love it. Now, today's the last day of school and we are all tired. I mean, even though we had a 4-day school week, everybody's still tired, but it's been great. And our teachers, so I knew that even if the board didn't go for it, which they did, and they were very excited about it, but just the fact that we tried to do something for them that would give them more time with their family, that would give them more time to plan. And, just the fact that they knew that we were supporting them and that we had their back was huge to them. And it's made a big difference in our culture here.
Let me take a step back.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Well, 4-day school week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool. How's that impacted? I guess performance is still good. It's just people are more motivated, I imagine.
So, I've looked over all the data and our first semester, it was like our attendance was up. It was like 2 percentage points up. And then this semester has just kind of, hurt us a little bit, but our attendance is no worse. In fact, it is a little bit better. Our teacher attendance is about the same as far as them missing days. Our behavior is better. Our student behavior is better. So that's good. But I think the biggest benefit has just been our teacher retention and us being able to recruit qualified teachers who are certified. And that was very difficult before. I mean, we were really struggling to get certified teachers.
I like what you said about like just the fact that you tried, even if the board didn't go for it, like the fact that your teachers and your staff knew you were trying, that is huge sometimes, just because sometimes some change like that could take a couple years. Maybe the board might want to see more data. They might want to see, whatever. So I like that you mentioned that. And I also like that Gary was kind of like, let's clarify what 4-day looks like. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Let's say I'm a mama and I work full time. What is that like if my work also revolved around the school calendar?
Right.
So talk a little bit about that, because I'm very interested very interested. So talk a little bit more about that.
So we go Monday through Thursday, and we looked at, because some schools I think that are the 4-day have the 4-day school week go Tuesday through Friday. Friday we had more absences. So, to me, when you think about Monday, it's like, okay, it's a business day, right? And then when you think about Friday, a lot of people think, well, fun Friday. Well, I didn't want to not be going to school on Monday and then also have a fun Friday. So, we looked at that. Kids can get dropped off at 7:10. So teachers are required to be here at 7:10. And the teacher's day ends after the last bus leaves. So they can leave at 4:15 or 4:20. And then of course they have Fridays off. Now, this year they were required to come, I think it was 12 Fridays. And we did House Bill 45, tutoring then. Next year, and that just wasn't a success. So next year we're not doing that. We're going to incorporate that in the school day, the 45 hours. But next year teachers are going to be required to come only 4 Fridays. And I'm taking a big leap, and I've told them that, but this is how I feel about it. Those teachers who aren't doing what they're supposed to. So if you're the teacher whose lesson plans aren't done and your grades are not in and you're just not up to par, then we're going to bring you in on Friday. We're not going to punish everybody.
I want to work for you.
Yeah. And so we'll have some PD on those 4 Fridays, but otherwise they have them off, and they can, as long as they're taking care of business, that's what matters.
I mean, you are speaking about something that I think is so important in the state of Texas, is local control. That makes sense for your district. And I love the districts who are leaning into what's best for our community. That is so important. I was on a rural board, and they're not, I don't think that they are considering that this year, but I think it's definitely it's on agendas to talk about and to find out about, because it is important. So I love that you are being able to lean into what's best for your district. And I love that you said you're taking a leap too, because I think sometimes leaders wait for everything to be figured out before they make the decision. And I don't know that that's the best form of leadership either.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary to me, because there are a few other 4-day districts around, and they're not doing this thing that I'm doing where we only come 4 Fridays. But I just feel like we have to, I mean, things are evolving, right? I mean, we don't have to stick with something. We can try some different things, and it might not work, honestly. Like it might be a total disaster. And if it does, then we'll make some changes. But, people want to come work at Pewitt. And that's what I want. I want the very best teachers to want to work here, and that's good for our students. So
yes, it's innovation, right? I mean, I love it. It's thinking outside the box, but man, this is cool. This has been a really, really good interview. And I've learned a lot. I'm sure those listening in have learned a lot as well, definitely on perspective and thinking outside the box. I know we got to close out, running short on time here. Last question. Anybody else you recommend coming on the podcast that's making a positive difference in public ed?
Oh, wow. Gosh, now you put me on the spot.
We have to have some tough questions.
I know, that is so tough.
First person that came to mind. Who was the first person that came to mind?
Gosh. There's so many people. Shelly Slaughter. Do you know her?
That name sounds familiar.
Okay, so she is another woman that's in education. She's a superintendent, and for the life of me, because you put me on the spot, I can't think of her district.
That's okay.
But she would be wonderful. She's
Oh, we love
amazing.
that.
Awesome.
We
Well,
love that.
yeah, we'll definitely reach out to her, and I guess we'll go ahead and close out here. I want to thank well, first, Corinne, thank you for being an awesome co-host. Superintendent Reid, really love this interview. We'd love to have you come on here again. And for those of y'all that have been tuning in, thank you for listening. And we want to give a shout out to our sponsor one last time before we close out. Ideal Impact is giving hundreds of millions of dollars to public ed, over 700 million, over 190 districts. If your district needs additional funding, reach out to Ideal Impact.